I think now we kind of switched from the founders to the consumers. Is a different thing, and we have also to make a very clear distinction between the technology and the cryptos. Two totally different things. The crypto tokens and the stuff. This has nothing to do with blockchain, for example. So if I create a blockchain application, I don't need necessarily a token, right? I don't need necessarily a crypto. I don't have to launch that to fund my project. It can be a purely blockchain-based concept point. I don't need. So if people looking for an investment and speculation as consumers, as investors of this, if this is retail or institutional, I think that's not the question here. It would be like, how do I attract them? If you ask me as a founder, how do I raise my money? Do I want to go for institutional investors? Do I create a token, a utility coin, whatever I want to raise money? Or I don't need that because I can do that perfectly fine without it. So there's too many opportunities. It's only a question for investors, small or big. I think it's more the question: does it make sense to launch a token if you want to raise money? That would be more a question for a founder, from my opinion.
And how people are going to get paid if it's not a token?
It depends. You don't need tokens to pay somebody, right? You can, if you want to be purely on paying people with blockchain-based currencies, right? Okay, launch it. Doesn't need that you. I mean, I get a lot of tokens for advisory jobs, and they're all mostly useless. But I'm not really into crypto, buying crypto. I have cryptocurrencies, but it's not what I is my core investment. This is speculation. I can go also in blue chips on the stock market. Same thing. We're talking about creating a startup, and a startup needs funds. This can be, unfortunately, let's say, if we all say no banks and no USD and no euro, no fiat currencies, okay, then I have to go for crypto. But it's not needed, right? I can do also barter tradings. So the aspect of the necessity to launch a token or to have an own currency, I don't see that in the concept of creating a company, no matter if it's Web 2 or Web 3.
Well, that really has a point, actually. Makes sense.
I see it in marketing terms. Say, for example, you have name brand XYZ who wants to sell more clothes and shoes and jewelry. And so you have a virtual dressing room run by an AI advisor who has can bring another virtual buy, and that actual person, essentially their avatar, their body, all their measurements is being tried on by them. And so they buy more. And at the end of it, if say you spend $100 more and you get an NFT of that Gucci bag that you can hang on your wall, or it can be a hologram on your wall as we move forward. And so there you have marketing pull and reward.
Yeah, and
an NFT.
Of course, a digital concept is or the digital twins of products is very clear. I work with that daily. I agree with you, but again, that wouldn't be the token. The NFT it would be a currency for payment. It's not a transfer. It's more like a certificate of ownership, or let's say a representation of something that you have.
Exactly, it's just marketing fluff, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally into that. That's a core thing with NFTs at the early stage, but NFTs, of course, can do much more.
Yeah, real world assets. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the concept of to be honest, I think it would be good to make a direct further question about startups, because now we went a little bit out of the subject, from my opinion.
Okay, so let's get back to the topic anyways. Malika, do you have something to add? Because I'm out here.
To this topic, no, but yeah, you're totally right, Matthias. We do see a lot of startups with completely useless tokens and that are not necessary. And but yes, we also left the original topic. So maybe let's talk about the most common mistakes founders make when creating a project. Who wants to start?
Very simple answer.
Okay.
The biggest mistake is that people just looking for money. So the unicorn idea is, I think, the biggest mistake that people can have. And that's it. That's for me the biggest mistake. So I can give now the comments to the other people, because that's the worst motivation you can have to create a startup.
Okay. So yeah, the best motivation for you is passion. The worst.
No. The best motivation is, in one case, maybe solving a problem. The other thing is creating something that maybe is unique. It should be never the. Let's put it this way: if you want to create a unicorn, have the money, the team, the support, the experience, and a lot of money. I mean, this AI unicorns that happen now recently. Okay, perfect. But generally, you can say to create a unicorn, maybe you have to invest a couple of $100 million. Then you maybe have a unicorn, and you can do that without having luck. But generally, I think the motivation should not be money. It should be a product that fits all these criteria that we said. Problem solving, passion. I want to do that. I don't have to love my job. It's not necessary. If everybody says if you love what you do, then you never work. I don't agree with that. You can also do something because you find it very challenging and you want to solve it. Fine, but it's never the money that can be the motivation. Everybody wants to do that for money. You want a reward, but it must be the product. For my opinion, that is the first and most important. Whatever criteria and parameter this should fit in, doesn't matter.
And I think it might be also not doing their homework. For example, not being clear on their value proposition, not figuring out exactly in numbers. It can be on a spreadsheet, it can be in notes, it can be anything, but it can be exactly how you're going to handle your costs, what they will be, what your pricing is going to be. Actually not trying to present it for financing, because as ideas grow and get bigger, they do have to get financed, generally. Unless you're sitting there with, on a couple of $1 billion yourself and can do it all yourself, and then you wouldn't anyway. So I think that if they don't identify markets, understand problems, create a full financial plan, and move it forward from there, then there are going to be problems. And then I leave it to Lorenzo because he's done this a lot more.
Well, no, but you nailed it. I completely agree with you. I would say the reason why people don't do their homework is because they don't really know what to do. It's lack of education, which is a shame in today's world because there is so much access to free education that if you don't know what you're doing, at least up to a certain point, it's your fault. 20 years ago, you could say, hey, I was born in the wrong place, right? Oh, this guy was born in Silicon Valley. I was born in a small town in the northeast of Italy. We don't have access to the same information. It's an unfair advantage. I'm screwed. Today, that's an excuse at this point. So we all have access to a lot of information, maybe bad information, worse information, right? But if you're not educated, up to a certain point, it's your fault. The other reason why people don't do their homework is because they are arrogant and because they think that they're better and because, I know that I'm supposed to do this, but I don't need to validate. People will buy it. And, I just need to build it and people will come in, right? I mean, at that point, you're putting your ego in front of your company, and that's usually not a good thing. So with the right mindset and with the right education, you can get rid of 99% of the risks or the problems or right. And then if you want to change the status quo, if you want to change the way things are done, that's great, but at least you have an idea. Hey, this is how people do things. If I'm going to come out with something different, maybe that's actually a better solution, but you need to understand that it's going to be different and it can go well or it can go bad, right? But you kind of need to understand the rules of the game, I think, not to apply them, even to break them, but at least you need to understand what everybody else is expecting so that you can control their reaction, right? So yeah, I feel that there are too many entrepreneurs that are just like trying to see what happens, and I'm not taking a no for an answer, right? I read a book that says, just keep doing it. Well, no, you need also to listen. And if they keep saying no, you should ask yourself why. You should wonder, like, maybe I am the problem. And of course, you have examples like Google. After 360 pitches, everybody said no, they made it. Okay, well, how many Googles do we have in the world, right? For everybody who is not Google, maybe you should listen to those no's, right? You should learn. You should be prepared, right? At least it will make your life easier. I'm not saying that you're going to be successful, but it's going to be. So going back to the question, because we tend here to, go around, I think that's a typical mistake is going after the money. Totally agree. It should be value first. If you do something valuable, people are going to buy it. People are going to invest in it, but there needs to be value first. And the second thing is do your homework. Don't feel you're superior and or don't be ignorant just because you're lazy. I think these are the main things. Maybe the third one that I can add, which is somehow related, is be objective. Yes, passion. Yes, love your child. Yes, believe in yourself, but also be objective. Develop the ability to take a step back and look at things from a different perspective. You cannot be so egocentric. So if you're pitching, for example, you're trying to raise money, this is not about what you had to offer. This is about what the investor will get. Are you solving a problem for the investor? Yes or no? If not, there's no deal. So it can't be all about, look at how cool I am, look at this, look at that. No, where's the business opportunity? Just to give you an example, if you're selling something to the client, same thing. What's the client's perspective? How does the client feel about it? Right? You need to develop the ability to look at things from other people's perspective so that you understand how to generate value to those people. To a client, to a user, to an investor, to a sponsor, to a partner. Everybody needs to win. Otherwise, there's no deal. You better stop us because we can't keep going like forever. So you need to handle this.
But I like it. I like it. Anyone?
I will also add the common mistake is not be present with the community, with the crypto community, because sometimes it plays a huge role, especially in crypto scene. So many people tend to avoid that, but this is actually one crucial point here, especially for the startups. And by the way, don't you think that what's better to build a close connection with the community, to release alpha after alpha, so make it really frequent, or just be in isolated building state and just make quarterly releases or so?
I've seen both sitting on Discord and Telegram communities. They'll be flourishing, they'll be coming out with this and this and this, and then they die. Or
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, actually. But it's a great question.
Well, I think this is also the timing. We saw in COVID, you had to go on Twitter Space and make a little bit of blah blah, and all of a sudden you have 10,000 people floating into your Discord and investing into your whatever you were offering. Nothing, maybe just a utility for a great game that has never been developed. I think this changed dramatically. All these kind of things are empty now. Maybe it's starting now again, but this is again a little bit riding the hype. And I think there is from both sides speculation, right? The one succeeds, there's the right timing, he has the right speakers and the right audience, and it works. For the ones that invest in this, it's the same thing. Maybe they invested in the right one and it kicks off. But if you go into a serious business and startup concept, doesn't have to be a startup. I think you can see what kind of tools you use, and you can use maybe all of them. But the whole question is how serious and how well you know business, right? Your product, what tools you can use. Do you use social media or not? In what kind of concept I'm going to release information, tokens, and whatever. So this is this is business management, right? So you can say people have it, people don't have it. If you put all the eggs in one basket, then maybe you win, maybe not. But this is lottery, this is speculation. So if you talk about serious business, I don't think that people will only use one tool and try to make the most out of it, because it's too risky for yourself, and it's too risky for, if you have investors, that this will fail.
Yeah. You have to have a product, and you have to build a product that people will actually use and get them started using it, basically. You can do as many alphas as you want, and everybody gets bored, and as many betas as you want, and everybody gets bored. You just need to move it as quickly as it's possible in the development process and come out with something that is usable rather than just too hype around it. So absolutely agree. Yeah.
What I wanted to say is, put it in different words. It really depends on the product, how you want to promote it, market it, and release it. Simple. Some, maybe you need to do something high frequency, and the other one you just need to build in stealth modus and come up when it's completely finished. Some you have to promote before. Really depends on, it's a concept. There's space for everything. This is actually the point. It depends how you manage it and how it fits your product and your concept and your strategy. There's no one solution.
Yeah, I agree. But with the changing world, it seems like people got to be reminded about that we really exist like a project, so that you need to always remind about yourself here more often than it was before, because the attention of people is like super
depends on your community and
unstable. Yeah.
I think this is a very individual approach. Yes, if you maybe say you want to have a general concept of it, yes, the frequency of information and the lifespan of information is getting much higher, the frequency, and much shorter the lifespan. Depends again on the product.
All goes to that.
I don't know, Lorenzo, what do you think?
No, I think maybe I have a different interpretation of the original question, but the way I was going to answer is that in general, I think it's better to get the community involved, not only because you need to remind them that you exist, which is a good point. There's a lot of noise out there, but also because at the end of the day, the community is providing you with data, with validation. So in general, and I agree, Matthias, there are exceptions or different ways of doing it. But in general, I'm a fan of validating as much as possible before building. I wouldn't build anything unless I had data that tells me this is what you need to build. And I would try to build as little as possible, go out, validate. Because of that, I wouldn't wait for a big release. I would try to get the alpha out, test it. Now, maybe you might not want to do like a public launch of the alpha. Maybe you want to select just like a specific group of users, right? You can still handle, the marketing aspect, the surprise aspect with the validation, right? It doesn't need to be completely transparent. Because there are people that are building companies on Twitter, sharing their data. Like an alumni of my accelerator did that. He's building a company, and every day he shares on Twitter, this is what I'm going to do. I'm considering hiring this person. This is the KPI. I was expecting a higher KPI. What do you guys think? Right? I don't know if I would do that. I think that might work for specific companies, not for all of them. But that is kind of like taking it to the extreme. That is kind of like being so transparent that you're constantly like trying to get the community opinionating, right? So that might be a little bit too much. But in general, I like the idea of having an interaction with your community to keep them engaged, but also to get data. Because at the end of the day, you're building the product for them, not for you. And the third reason, which is maybe the most important one of interacting with the community, is that in a lot of cases, I would say 70% of the companies that come to me with a pitch deck, the problem that I had, the reason why I think this is a risky investment is user acquisition, rather than technology, product, or whatever, development. Not because they are developing something that's simple, because in many cases it's actually hard, but they are really good. I'm not questioning their tech skills, But my $1 million question is, okay, how are you gonna get 1 million users using this? And so because of that, when people come with a pitch deck, the timeline, when they say roadmap, right, it's usually alpha, beta, V1, V2, V3. Here we do the public launch. Here we do the massive launch. Here we do the moon launch, right? It's all about and I say that is not a company roadmap. That is a product roadmap. Okay, mm-hmm. Where is the company roadmap? When are you gonna get the first 200 users? When are you gonna get the first 2,000 users, 200,000 users? And how are you going to do that? And what are you doing to actually do that? And the order of priorities should be the opposite. Get me 200 users or 2,000 users, and then launch the alpha. Get me a waiting list. In today's world, I think that it's harder to build a waiting list than a product. Again, not because products are easy, but because there is technical talent out there. You can find people who can build smart contracts and tokens and this and that. So the problem nowadays is not necessarily the product. Unless you're inventing a layer 0 or something like, okay, cool. But most of us are not working on that, right? So the problem is not the product. The problem is, bring me a waiting list with 200,000 people saying, I want this shit. I'm going to pay for it. Bring me that. That is the problem. And what people do is they tend to work on the easy thing, which is the development of the product, saying, and then I'll figure it out, and people will buy it, or I'll figure it out. And, from an investor's perspective, no, let's focus on the big problem. Like, the big problem is not to develop this. The big problem is to have people who want to buy it. So, so the waiting list is the main thing. How do you come out with a waiting list? You need a community. So building a community is harder today than building a product.
But there have been a lot of closed Discord servers that actually made exactly this. You bring a bunch of people inside, and then people were waiting actually and said like, oh my God, it was much more interesting to be on a waiting list to get into the server instead of the open invitation and everybody could be inside. That was the kind of special thing. I agree with that.
Yeah, and hopefully then go for it. Sorry.
I completely agree with you about the waiting list. I actually advised a client recently, and it kind of went to do exactly that. Let's get 200,000 signups. You got the social media, you push it, etc. Let's get the 200, get the waiting list, and then maybe we can get you some money, right? And it just kind of went. So, right? But
here we come a bit to the question before. Exactly this has been used for a lot of rug pulls. I mean, this was exactly the thing that the people created a story. A lot of people were on the waiting list and we wanted to buy let's say, especially with the NFTs, or they wanted to buy the token, and there was no product. And at the end, the people were not able to build the product because they only had an idea and they didn't have the management skill. I don't even say that it must be a rug pull or it was like bad intention, but at the end it was over their head. They didn't have the experience. They, burned the money. The cash was actually because of less experience, and then the money was gone and there was no product anymore. And this is, I think, the thing. How do we deal with that? How do we understand this is a waiting list for a real good product and a real good team? They can do that, and this is a complete scam. Or it is a failure because the team is not good enough. But this is, I think, the question that we had before.
That's a great point, because you have this waiting list. Like, who wants a DeFi protocol that is going to generate 2,000% return per minute? Of course, everybody wants it. So, of course, the waiting list, The problem is that product is impossible. So, you nail it. So, again, it can be only the waiting list. It can be only the product. It needs to be a combination of both. Maybe my point is it's 51% waiting list and 49% product, meaning I acknowledge that it's a little bit harder for what I've seen to build a community rather than a product, but the product is still 49% of it, right? So you still need to prove that the product makes sense and that you're able to build it. I think, when you're raising money at the seed level, I think that is kind of like the sweet spot. When you already have like early on traction, like early signs of product market fit, aka the waiting list, but you also prove to have the resources and the capabilities to eventually build what you're talking about, what you're describing. So I had the right team. I'm not going to figure out how to do it. No, I already know how to do it. Maybe I have like a V0.1. I already show my technical capabilities and the technical feasibility. I haven't built a product, that's fine, but I show you credibility in that sense and feasibility. And my number one asset is the community. To me, the combination of those two things is what unlocks a seed investment in like that. If you only have one thing, you might be questioned, can you really build that shit? Or, or vice versa. Or if it's only the product, it's like, now you want me to invest in this so that we can buy your user base, which might be a fiasco, right? So that's the sweet spot, I think.
Yeah, I actually have nothing to add here. I like this. So, and I actually also liked your idea of like a company's roadmap. That's really interesting, actually. If companies started doing this, that's amazing, actually, to see their plans on the company, not only the projects, but the company by itself.
I think, that's the most important slide. I never seen it. You had the timeline and you had past, present, and future. Past, show me the main achievements. Hey, I achieved 20,000 people on my waiting list. I achieved this proof of concept, right? Those are the achievements in multiple areas, not only the product. I achieved like a pre-seed round, right? And most importantly, I achieved to actually increase the value of my company thanks to that investment. So I was not only able to raise money, I was actually able to use the money to multiply the value of that money by multiplying the value of my company. So that is kind of like the types of achievements that I want to see on the left side of the timeline. And then you had the current moment. Okay, now I have this traction, now I have this team, now I have this product, now I have whatever as a result of that. And then you had the projection, right? The idea is to say, hey, I'm raising money now. I'm raising $500,000. I'm already growing like this, but if you inject capital right now, my growth line is going to go up like this. Because in many cases, you're raising money to pay for bills, right? Like in many cases, if you don't raise money, you're dead. So I understand that. But ideally, an investor wants to hear that you're not using their money to pay for, the light bill. You're actually investing the money that they're going to give you to build a piece of the infrastructure that will allow you to do this. Boom. So that's kind of like the slide. Timeline, past, present, and future. Go ahead.
I think this is a big symptom, what also matches with what we said before, of the Web3 space. I mean, honestly, I 20 years ago, I wouldn't imagine that somebody comes and just gives me a pitch deck or a business plan, call it like this 20 years ago, where they only say like, okay, I'm gonna build the product. But because we are so tech majority developers, they come up with their ideas. They only have that in mind, and that's what we said before. So for them, that's the whole world. Like that's the horizon they can work with, and all the rest they don't have the concept, idea, the knowledge about it, and they think, well, it's that's it. I have a good product. It's technology. That's all I need, and that's not correct. So that's why they also don't have this thing that usually it's a standard to actually include all these figures.
And that goes back to Minka's point before. You didn't do your homework, right? You're only focused on what you know instead of focusing on what you don't know, which is where the risk comes from, right? So you tend to focus on what you know, right? But in reality, a company needs vision, strategy, execution, product, technology, of course, growth, fundraising, use of funds, marketing, communication. You need all of those things, right? And people tend to focus on what they know, thinking everything else, I'm going to be so good at this that I don't need anything else. And that's where you're going to fail for sure. So my recommendation when I train entrepreneurs is you need to know a little bit of all of these things. I have kind of like 5 pillars: vision, product, execution, growth, and funding. You need to know a little bit of all of that. You need to understand what your company needs as far as vision, product, execution, growth, and funding, right? It's kind of like, okay, come up with a list of like the things that you need to be successful in these areas, and then do like a self-analysis. What do you bring to the table? Hey, I'm super good at product. I might be good at fundraising. Maybe I can learn, right? But I don't know anything about growth, but I don't have the vision, or I don't have the ability to execute, to build a team, right? Okay, so you can self-identify your strengths and your pain points. Just by doing that, like understanding what a company needs and then saying, do I have it, yes or no? The things that you don't have, either you need a co-founder, especially if it's a tech company, you don't know about technology, you need a co-founder. There's no shortcut for that. Or you need an employee, or you need an advisor, or you need a contractor, depending on how those gaps that you have might affect your company. How much risk is associated to those gaps? High risk, you need a co-founder. Low risk, you might get it done with a contractor, But again, like the point is that people tend to focus on what they know instead of focusing on what they don't know, and that's how they increase the risk of failure.
I think that's a good message to wrap it up. Is that you should really first think where you're not good in, and not only what you're good in, and that's I think the best advice for a young startup, to like find first your weakness and then
Yeah.
fill that gap with whether co-founders, as you said, with advisors,
Or learn.
advice, and then build at least a foundation that you think unless you can start working your first steps, and then do what you can really do. Focus on that, but first make your analyze your weakness and see where is. If that is maybe a crucial point that you cannot go ahead or that doesn't work out, I think that's the main thing, because that's what's happening.
One good brain.
Sorry, go ahead.
Together we're one good brain. It's the underlying message of that. When we have multiple people as co-founders or whatever, think in completely different arenas. Absolutely good. Yeah.
Amazing. I think that's a perfect ending point for this discussion. Malika, do you have something to add?
No, nothing. Just you guys so inspiring. Thank you so much for this valuable conversation. So much was said, but there is as well so much to talk about still. So
yeah, exactly.
We should repeat and keep talking.
Perfect.
Definitely. Thank you, Malika.
Awesome. Anytime.
Definitely.
Well, thanks. Okay.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Ivan.
Thanks for tuning in. See you soon. Have a nice day.
Lovely to be on with everyone.
Great to meet you all. Bye.